My heart has no desire to stay where doubts arise and fears dismay, though some may dwell where these abound. My prayer, my aim, is higher ground. The greatest fact of the tabernacle was that Jehovah was there, a presence was waiting within the veil. Similarly, the presence of God is the central fact of Christianity. At the heart of the Christian message is God Himself waiting for His redeemed children to push into conscious awareness of His presence. God's purpose in creating Adam and Eve is summed up in what they could do for God that nothing else in the whole creation could do. They had an exclusive on God shared by no other of God's creation. It is a grave responsibility that a man takes upon himself when he seeks to edit out of God's self-revelation such features as he in his ignorance deems objectionable. Grace is that in God which brings into favor one justly in disfavor. The only power God recognizes in His church is the power of His Spirit, whereas the only power actually recognized today by the majority of evangelicals is the power of man. Nicholas Herman, who was commonly known as Brother Lawrence, was a simple dishwasher in the institution where he lived. He said he did those dishes for the glory of God. When he was through with his humble work, he would fall down flat on the floor and worship God. Whatever he was told to do, he did it for the glory of God. He testified, "I wouldn't as much as pick up a straw from the floor, but I did it for the glory of God." Spinoza wrote of the intellectual love of God, and he had a measure of truth there, but the highest love of God is not intellectual, it is spiritual. God is spirit, and only the spirit of man can know Him really. In the deep spirit of a man the fire must glow, or his love is not the true love of God. Down through history man has taken many paths in his quest for God's presence, all to no avail. Only one path is correct, and that path is revealed in the Word of God. Only in the Bible do we begin to understand what these inward stirrings are and how to find entrance into the presence of God. A right understanding of the Bible opens to us the only path into the presence of God. The Bible tells us how to be saved, but textualism goes on to make it tell us that we are saved, something which in the very nature of things it cannot do. Assurance of individual salvation is thus no more than a logical conclusion drawn from doctrinal premises, and the resultant experience wholly mental. Our thought habits are those of the scientist, not those of the worshipper. We are more likely to explain than to adore. He is indivisible from the Father and the Son, so that if you were to be suddenly transferred to heaven itself, you wouldn't be any closer to God than you are now, for God is already here. God made us for Himself. That is the only explanation that satisfies the heart of a thinking man, whatever his wild reason may say. Should faulty education and perverse reasoning lead a man to conclude otherwise, there is little that any Christian can do for him. We can never know who or what we are till we know at least something of what God is. His supreme purpose in making man was to have somebody capable to properly and sufficiently worship Him and satisfy his own heart. Over against all this cloudy vagueness stands the clear scriptural doctrine that God can be known in personal experience. A loving personality dominates the Bible, walking among the trees of the garden and breathing fragrance over every scene. Always a living person is present, speaking, pleading, loving, working, and manifesting himself whenever and wherever his people have the receptivity necessary to receive the manifestation. So, my Christian friend, if you are settling back, snuggling into your foam rubber chair and resting in your faith in John 3 verse 16 and the fact that you have accepted Jesus Christ, you had better watch yourself. Take heed, lest you also be found wanting. Take heed of your own heart, lest when all is said and done, you have become tied in with the world. It is not intellectual knowledge about God that quenches man's ancient heart thirst, but the very person and presence of God Himself. We have too many dry preachers in the world now. We have so many dry preachers, and so many men who never shed a tear. If you can keep the tears of God on you and can keep your heart tender, keep it. You have a treasure you should never give up. The only cross in all of history that was turned into an altar was the cross on which Jesus Christ died. It was a Roman cross. They nailed Him on it, and God, in His majesty and mystery, turned it into an altar. The Lamb who was dying in the mystery and wonder of God was turned into the priest who offered himself. No one else was a worthy offering. Yet who can flee from His presence when the heaven of heavens cannot contain Him? The deeper life is deeper only because the average Christian life is tragically shallow. What my head cannot comprehend, my heart can adore. It is not a cheerful thought that millions of us who live in a land of Bibles, who belong to churches and labor to promote the Christian religion, may yet pass our whole life on this earth without once having thought or tried to think seriously about the being of God. Few of us have let our hearts gaze in wonder at the I Am, the We are not disappointed that we do not find all truth in our teachers of faith, fullness in our politicians, or complete honesty in our merchants, or full trustworthiness in our friends. That we may continue to exist, we make such laws as are necessary to protect us from our fellow men, and let it go at that. The soul has eyes with which to see and ears with which to hear. Feeble they may be from long disuse, but by the life-giving touch of Christ alive now and capable of sharpest sight and most sensitive hearing. Our gifts and talents should also be turned over to Him. They should be recognized for what they are, God's loan to us, and should never be considered in any sense our own. We have no more right to claim credit for special abilities than for blue eyes or strong muscles. For who mocketh thee to differ from another? And what hast thou that thou didst not receive? In thy presence silence best becomes us. The problem of why God created the universe still troubles thinking men. But if we cannot know why, we can at least know that He did not bring His worlds into being to meet some unfulfilled need in Himself, as a man might build a house to shelter him against the winter cold or plant a field of corn to provide him with necessary food. The word necessary is wholly foreign to God. As long as you set yourself up as a little god to which you must be loyal, there will be those who will delight to offer affront to your idol. How then can you hope to have inward peace?